Hey guys, welcome to the 10-8 podcast, coming from the Department of Public Safety's state-of-the-art recording studio. Just a big shout out to our governor for giving us the opportunity to be in these positions and help serve law enforcement across the state of Arkansas, and our Attorney General. He funded this production studio, understanding the value of updating our online training curriculum and having the opportunity to, come into the 21st century and have discussions around the table like this. So we want to definitely make sure we appreciate them. Today we got some very, very special guests. It's special every day when these two show up, when Eric and Jason show up, but now that we've got you three here, Chief Helton from Little Rock Police Department, Chief Hodges from the Benton Police Department, and Chief Thessing from North Little Rock. So friends of mine for years now, and we want to sit around today and have a discussion about how you guys are making things work. So the largest metro in the state of Arkansas, all three of you, I say all the time, I've said it all for a very long time, criminals know no jurisdictional bounds. And so we kind of want to talk about that today, how you're policing your communities, how you're making things work. But first, let's just start by telling our listeners a little bit about yourselves. So who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
There you go. All right, somebody's got to step up.
Scotty, Hodges, Benton Police Department. I come from a long line of law enforcement officers. I'm number 8 in my family. So
Wow.
I felt as a kid I was destined to be a police officer. I took a different route in the beginning. I went through x-ray school. Then I became a respiratory therapist. I'm a nationally certified respiratory therapist.
Told you he was smart.
And at some point, I just decided to make the leap and do what I think I was destined to do.
Yeah.
And I started work for the Benton Police Department in 1996. I've been there 28 years. And I've been chief for 7.
Yeah, started our 29th year together. We started at the same time, kind of mirrored paths up the career ladder. So, yeah, that's thank you, Chief.
Yeah, Heath, Helton, Little Rock Police Department. So kind of similar to Scotty. I started my law enforcement career in 96, but for me, I had every desire to want to be a doctor. That's what I wanted to do. I joined the military out of high school, went to the medical field, came back from that, partied too much, and then took a detour. But always knew I wanted to help people. And I had a friend of mine that actually worked for North Little Rock at the time. And he said, "Man, why don't you be the police?" And I had to really laugh hard about that at first. And I was like, "No," because I was partying way too much. But then made the jump to it. Enjoyed it ever since. Been with Little Rock my entire career. Been the chief for 2 years now, and just it's been great.
Yeah, and you're the first internal chief in quite a while, correct?
Quite a while. Since back in the late 70s.
Yeah, exactly. So, big deal for Little Rock PD to bring one of their own up and from the ranks. So, proud of you for that. All right, sir.
Yeah, I'm very proud of you.
Last but not least. Yeah, and I'll just go ahead and tell everybody, we chose these three for the fact of who they are and what they bring to the table, and the fact we're going to laugh for the next 30 minutes. So, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. So, Patrick Thessing, North Little Rock Police. I wasn't smart enough to be a doctor. I'm just going to go ahead and admit it right now. I actually went to school to work in advertising to be an artist, and I did that for a little while. And I had some friends that worked for the police department I used to play basketball with. And I was listening to them talk about how much they love their jobs and, kind of all the stories and stuff. But the thing that hit on me was how much they love doing what they do. And then I got to thinking, I didn't want to spend 40 years doing something that, I kind of liked. And so I made the jump and fixing to start year number 30 on the 25th of this month. And let's see, 4 years as chief now, I think. And I was just standing in the wrong place at the wrong time. When that happened.
I understand how that feels sometimes. Yeah, for sure.
You get voluntold.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel like ended up here. But we're all here for reasons, right? So your stories are great, very diverse backgrounds. But one of the things we want to know is, obviously you're all friends. Again, you kind of grew up in the same area doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. But how does that play into the ability to serve your communities and solve crimes? Because, again, our bad guys don't know jurisdictional boundaries. They don't know where Benton starts or North Little Rock ends, and Little Rock's in the center of it. So how do you guys make that work?
Like, you want to start working down the line?
Basically, I feel like if we weren't in communication, if we weren't talking about the cases we have and the things that are going on in our cities, it'd be doing a disservice to our citizens, because there are no boundaries for criminals. That's my initial thoughts.
Yeah, I agree. And I think one of the other things is relationships. I talk a lot of times in community, like, I look at it being a chief, I'm building a house, and in order to build a house, you got to have a great foundation. That foundation is having great relationships within the community, but also having relationships with our partners, fellow law enforcement agency partners. And I think knowing that I can make a phone call, lean on Scotty, or lean on Pat over North Little Rock, or even the other jurisdiction, Colonel Hager, Chief Hager over Shore. I mean, and that played out too in when we had the George Floyd protest, and I mean we called on every one of them to help support us, and I think having that has just been huge, and it's a great comfort.
Yeah, and we just don't have enough seats around the table. But you mentioned a couple other great partners that are just pieces to the puzzle for all of our success. Colonel Hager with the state police, obviously we all lean on ASP pretty heavily. I mean, yesterday, pretty critical incident that they helped resolve. Chief Hager in Sherwood, Brent in Jacksonville, Milton over in Bryan. I mean, it's just it takes all of us to get it done. But Pat, from your standpoint, I mean, being the oddball on the north side of the river.
I thought he was oddball. Yeah. No, I think the biggest thing is the fact that all of us that are chiefs around here, we all care very much about what we do and how we affect change in our departments and in our community. And, the relationships are huge. And that's the biggest thing. And the fact that we care enough to have these relationships. I've seen chiefs before. It's always a jurisdictional thing. I'm smarter than him. I'm better than him, that kind of stuff. And there's none of that with us. We're all on the same team. We have the same goals. We want to do the same things. We want to see people succeed. We want to see our community succeed. So, that's that's huge when we're doing what we have to do.
Yeah, one of the things I've enjoyed with Scotty over the years is I felt, as Hot Springs, I was kind of a little more isolated than you guys were, even though we were 30 minutes away. But if I had a situation, I could call Scotty and just kind of bounce it off of him, because we all deal with unique personnel issues, unique community issues. But that, to me, is such a value of having you guys as friends, is being able to just bounce that oddball question off of you. And I know you've done the same thing. We've done it back and forth. But there's so much value in that, whether we're dealing with a criminal case or a personnel issue or just a community issue. How are you tackling that versus what I'm seeing? So it's meant the world to me to be able to call you guys at different times in my career and get those answers.
Definitely.
So what do you guys got?
Well, 2 times now relationships have been mentioned. 2 times. And I will say that this panel is truly the epitome of law enforcement leadership in the state of Arkansas. So what does that relationship look like? Is that because y'all were friends, you grew up in the ranks together? How would one build those relationships? How do you see it building?
Yeah, well, that starts way early on in your career. You don't all of a sudden get to be chief and like, oh, let's me and Heath talk. You know, it's not that kind of thing. It's the fact that we've interacted over the years through certain training missions. Just stuff in general, police stuff in general, and so it's kind of you have to work on that early on, and you don't know early on if you're ever going to be a chief or not, but you have to build those relationships as you go, because as a leader, that's what makes you successful. And so we've just been, I guess it's kind of lucky or fate, however you want to call it, that we all ended up in the same place at the same time. But we had this background already in place. Sure. And so, and I think just if you plan on being in a leadership role, or you're in a leadership role as a sergeant, a frontline supervisor, whatever, that's how you get started with those relationships, because you're going to move up.
So, Pat, did you kind of piggyback off that question? Heath's been in this position for a couple of years now. You've been in yours for 4. So you've seen an outside chief in our state's largest department. Was it different? Not anything. I'm not speaking bad of anyone that's held the position before, but was that relationship different because they were from the outside?
Very much so. Very much so. And it was almost no relationship, because communication was cut off, and it was chiefs kind of distance themselves. They're at that elite spot, and they
had
have
their castle and the moat around the
castle. That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
And I'd venture to say none of us have castles and none of us have moats. I mean, I think Heath might live in a starter castle, but his private life, I'm not sure. But
Colonel Hager.
But yeah. But no, that
he'll never miss another podcast ever.
Yeah, because we got free reign now.
That's
he's not
exactly
here.
right.
But yeah, it's just we're just in this together, and that's kind of how we approach it.
That's great.
Can I add to that?
Yeah.
If you'd asked me 10 years ago whether the majority of the chiefs come from within, I'd say probably 95% are outside chiefs.
Yeah.
If you ask me today, I'm going to say probably 95% are from within.
Yeah.
So there has been a complete change.
Yeah, and so what do you give credit? How do we get there? Are we doing a better job of mentoring?
Typically,
You hear when a chief comes from the outside, it's because they did, and I say they, mayors, admin, whoever the person that selects the chief is, they don't like what they're looking at. They want to bring somebody in to make change. So maybe we are doing a better job at administration, at doing a service to the citizens, and that's why they like what they're seeing. They want to bring someone up that has been trained that way, and they just like how we're doing it.
Yeah, so we're truly succession planning, right?
Yeah.
We're planning for our replacements, and we want those replacements to come from inside if we can.
I want to ask a question kind of based on that. We always had a saying where I grew up there in Hot Springs, if you're not training your replacement, you're doing your organization a disservice. Did y'all feel that you were mentored in that way, and is that something y'all subscribe to moving forward?
For me, I had some really good mentors along the way, both internally, externally, that were really good mentors, people that were out on the circuit, so to speak, that were out there training and teaching that I kind of followed. But I always knew that I wanted to do more than just be a patrol officer or more than just want to be a sergeant. I'm a big believer in grow your own fruit, because if your agency's doing things right, you should be growing your own fruit. Kind of like I said, you should be training somebody to be your next replacement. And I think when you're doing that, you're garnishing a lot of respect from your peers, from your political leaders, your community. And when you're able to do that, then you kind of build that credibility, and you're establishing that respect. It's like these guys up here, tremendous amount of respect for them. And over the years, they've been right there for me. I'm able to make phone calls, and that it makes all the difference in the world when you're able to do that. And just, I think for cities to be able to build their folks up, and invest in their people. Because you really do. You're investing in your organization, and if you can do that and grow it, then you're going to be successful. And I think that's why we've seen a turn in my agency. We think because I'm familiar with the community. You grow up there, you've lived there your entire life, you're invested in it, so therefore you have more interest in it. And it's the same thing probably for these guys as well. It's the same thing.
Have you seen a cultural shift since you've taken over? Do you believe that there's more buy-in to that community philosophy with you coming from the inside?
Yeah, it's think definitely from the community aspect of it. Obviously internal is where you see most of your challenges. When you change a culture that has been different over the last 3 or 4 years, obviously there's a little bit of internal frustration there, but I think that's the advantage coming from within. 28 years of experience in the same department, what works, what doesn't work, and what the community needs. So I think we're seeing it, and it's moving in the right direction. But just like these guys, probably when they took over chiefs, nothing changes overnight. It takes a lot of time to get things in place and change some of that culture. And I think law enforcement profession as a whole is changing very rapidly. You look at what you guys are doing here with Celeste and the academies. Total 180 from where it used to be, and where it's taking basically law enforcement in our state to the next level. And very progressive and doing much more than a lot of states around us. And I commend you all, because that's part of what we're seeing as our growth and how I think we're getting better in our state.
Oh, we really appreciate that. I can't brag on these guys enough. That we just whiteboard it and they make it happen, so it's pretty cool. So you were talking about the protest, and you guys all really had to come together during that. So how have you policed your communities post George Floyd? What are you doing differently from a community standpoint? Are you doing anything different? But how are you policing your communities in today's environment and making it work? Because y'all all seem to have really great relationships for the most part. We know there's probably some hiccups. You've got great relationships with your community, so we know you're doing it right there. But you also got great retention rates. Y'all are 3 larger agencies, and your retention rates are pretty amazing. So obviously you're building a culture that people want to be a part of. How's that working?
Well, I think it's working good so far. If Colonel Hager would stop raising the trooper pay, we wouldn't have a problem.
Are you not higher than they are now?
But no. But that's one of the things, I was thinking about the other day. We really don't lose people to other agencies. We have some that go to state police, and that's fine. And we get some that go federal, and that's great too. But the people that we have leave, we had one leave the other day. He's going to be a full-time pastor. You know, he's not going to another agency.
Yeah,
It's
how do you
another,
fight that?
It's another calling. You don't want to fight that.
Yeah.
You get hit by lightning.
Yeah, lightning and thunder.
So it's that kind of stuff. And I think, you know, post George Floyd, when we've really had to look at how we do things, how we operate, the way we operate, you know, we really focused on, you know, training and the mental health part where, you know, these officers can start it's okay to deal with this stuff now and talk about it as opposed to letting it build up, and then you're out on the street doing something that you're not supposed to do. So I think really investing, like he said, investing in growing your own fruit, investing in your own people, and really kind of putting them first so they can go out and be their best to the community. I think that's worked out really good for us.
It amazes me the more we talk and have lunches and stuff, how similar everything is at each agency, no matter the size, the same issues, the same good things, the same applicant, you know, whether we had a drop after George Floyd.
Everybody.
Yeah. You know, and it's starting to come back to life. You know, our numbers are getting back up there. In fact, I think this year we're really close to hitting our highest numbers in the last 10 years of applicants.
Yeah.
So we're getting
Quality
back.
applicants.
Quality.
Yeah,
applicants.
absolutely.
Better choices. We can make our better choices in our selection process.
Right.
Because we want to hire the best, just like they want to hire the best.
Yeah, I think it's education to our public as well. Doing a better job of educating the communities about what we do as a profession, as opposed to letting the media tell our story, because obviously the media is very much slanted a lot of times. So I think we're getting out there more in the community, getting out there more involved, meeting with a variety of different organizations, even those organizations that aren't so much friendly to law enforcement. So we have conversations with them. We sit down and we hear them out. And then we take that back to our officers and let them know, hey, look, overall, the majority of our community supports what we do. We just got to continue to get better at what we're doing.
Yeah.
And it's not that we're doing anything bad. We just got to continue to evolve and get better.
Yeah, and I think as a state, you know, I think we have a very supportive state.
I agree.
For law enforcement, really. You know, we do have those isolated incidents, and we're going to be criticized for that. But honestly, when something's pointed out that we're doing wrong, you know something, we need to figure out how to fix it. And it's very obvious to me, knowing your agencies, knowing you guys, knowing where maybe you previously were at different times, you guys are knocking it out of the park. I mean, it's very impressive to know the relationship you have, the success that you're having in your communities. What do you guys got?
So, may I? You're okay with this? Okay. So
we're asking permission now?
well, you know how Eric likes to talk.
Okay.
So I will keep this brief. So there is a wealth of knowledge and experience sitting here. And it's truly, like, for me, I'm amazed what you bring to the table. In your years of experience, you've seen a lot of changes in law enforcement. From when you started and the tactics used, the equipment used, until today's date. And I know you see that change coming in. Has that been good for your agency? Is that good for your community?
I think the change is good. Yeah, it's what's interesting though is so you have all the old heads still working there, and then you have all these brand new people coming in.
Watch this.
That's okay. That's okay. And you know they have their place just like everything. But the kind of the clash of the two.
Yes, sir.
You know, is kind of where the struggle lies. But I think, you know, just having that combination of old knowledge with the combination of new questions.
Yes, sir.
And it kind of helps change things and you know, kind of steer everything more professional than kind of how we used to be. You know, in the old days, it was kind of hard knocks. That's how we handled things. And now, you know, it's not – we're not that anymore. We're not, you know, that's part of it, obviously, because people get violent sometimes. But, you know, we tend to be more professional, more focused on how we're doing things, more focused on training. We get more training hours now than I've ever seen in my career. It's outrageous, but that's good. Yeah. That's good, and that's how, you know, that's how we're going to have to change. And it's like he said, so we can explain to the public how we do things, how we operate. And keep that in our mindset that we're professionals. You know,
I like that.
yeah, we're not down here. We have to be up here.
Gentlemen, anything y'all want to add to that?
Yeah, just kind of piggyback off what Pat said. I think what we've seen in law enforcement over there, and you've all been at the table for a long time, is that this cross-generational deal that it's almost like the boom. It's happened.
Yeah.
And I don't think nobody ever predicted or played it out that it was going to happen this way. So we still got a few baby boomers that are out there, and you've got, I don't know what gen letter we're on now, but you've got all of these that have converged at one time on top of one another. So you've got your older officers that aren't really, that why can't we do things the way we used to do? Well, things have evolved, and change is the one thing that's constant. It's inevitable. It's going to occur. How your agency takes it and runs with it is a whole nother thing, but we've had to adapt, I think, as law enforcement. One thing that, like for what we have to deal with a lot now, and I think my city is no different than any others, is that we are being forced to do things that are traditionally not law enforcement related. And when we talk about dealing with mental health calls, I mean, yeah, we deal with calls of mental health, but it's becoming more and more prevalent where it's not really a law enforcement, but somebody's in crisis. You talk about your ever-growing homeless populations that we're seeing sprout up in communities that never really had to deal with it. Now they're dealing with it, and they're more societal issues than they are law enforcement. And now agencies are being thrust into dealing with it, and now you're having to go back and train your officers. This is what we have to do. Why do we have to do this? Why can't we just put them in jail? Can't do that no more. So, where things are progressing so quickly, we're having to really almost chase the boulder down the hill. And it's very difficult to get in front of it. But for chiefs, I think that's going back to our relationships where we can feed off of one another. Hey, how are you dealing with this? And that helps us. But trying to gather your masses sometimes and get them to understand this is why we have to do what we do is because things are just changing. We don't live in a very normal world anymore. We don't know what normal is anymore. And to be honest with you, the world we know is not the same world we know 5, 10, 15 years ago. It's very –
It'll change again tomorrow.
And it will. And we're dealing with not only – the things in our country, but there's international things that now have influence here, so it's becoming more of a challenge.
Yeah, I think Pat used a word a while ago that we probably don't use enough and think about as seriously as we should. You said professional. Mm-hmm. I mean, so, this isn't just a job. Back in the mid-'90s when we got hired, we were taking a job. We didn't realize that we were getting into a profession. I think our level of training, our expectation, I mean, this is truly the men and women that are doing the job today are true professionals. And if they're not true professionals, we're holding them accountable. And we're finding a way that they get out of the profession. And I kind of that was my next question to you guys. So we can do all these things to build that trust in our community, change the culture of our agencies, but there's that accountability aspect of it. And I know all three of you are serious about holding the men and women in our profession accountable for their actions. Just want to kind of touch on that and how important that is to you.
It's very important, but really it's got to start with expectations. They have to know what your expectations are from an administrative standpoint. If they don't know what your expectations are, they're having to make up their own what they expect of themselves or their others. So they have to know what your expectations are. They have to know how you want the community treated, how you want them to handle certain things. And if they don't know, they're just not going to do it. They're not going to meet your expectations.
Right.
And I think law enforcement in general over the years is really bad about passing off the problem children. You get rid of them, they go to another agency, they get hired, and I think that's one thing that, we're kind of cracking down. I know Heath more than I am, but I'm working on it.
Always room for improvement.
Always, yeah. Is getting the people in law enforcement that have been terminated, whatever, that don't need to be in law enforcement, and getting them decertified. And it kind of sucks. You don't really. Because as you're taking somebody's career, however, we have to look at the big picture. We're not doing whatever community they go to next. We're not doing them a service by letting these people stay in law enforcement. And so I think that's something, collectively we're getting really better at. And trying to weed out the I don't want to say unprofessionals, but the ones that really don't need to be here.
Yeah, we've talked about it in previous podcasts, but the fact that we had a 4-year backlog in decertification that's down to less than a year now, what Eric and his staff has done to prepare those cases, to send them to the commission where they're truly a professionally put together case and get it heard, and then some of the flagging systems. So maybe it's not a decertifiable offense, right, but you release somebody under terms that other agencies need to know about. Eric's built in these processes now where you're not going to be able to put him on your roster until you have a conversation with him about why he left Scotty. And all those things, we're seeing it pay off because we're having chiefs and sheriffs call us and say, hey, this file is flagged. I see where he worked at Benton. And we disclose that now. And so you've got full, the door's wide open. It's your decision whether you're going to hire him or not, but you're going to know why they left those previous agencies. And that's all due to their hard work.
Chief, you mentioned talking about passing on a problem child, and that absolutely was happening. Once upon a time, you could chart the career path of a problem officer. Often they would start at an agency that had a good amount of oversight. Right, they had somebody keep an eye on them, and they washed out from there under whatever circumstances. And instead of somebody flipping the switch and putting it before us, or making a note of it, or making a paper trail, they go and they found employment somewhere else at an agency with slightly less oversight, and that would progress and progress and progress, and they would wash out and wash out and wash out until they end up at an agency, which a lot of our agencies in Arkansas they're running 1 officer, 2 officers, 3 officers, and now that level of oversight is down to next to nothing. The problem is still there, so the problem within the officer is still there. So now it's exponentially worse because you have a problem officer with 0 oversight. So I can appreciate the recognition that in the past, sometimes a problem was getting kicked down the road, and that's not happening anymore because we've said it before, nobody hates a bad cop worse than a good cop, right?
Exactly.
Oh, and I'd add to that, too, that, when these officers come in like that, I mean, you set the standard. We talk professionalism. You take the oath of office. You sign off on your code of ethics. But I think reinforcing along the way when these officers get down their career 2 years into it, somewhere along the line they forget about it, what it all meant, when you took that oath. And also knowing the fact that whether you work for Little Rock, North Little Rock, Benton, whoever, you represent a profession that's over 800,000 strong. So
14,000 in this state.
Yeah, and you mess up, regardless of what state you're in or whatever, it represents every single one of us. And that's huge. And I think sometimes, I try to reinforce it with our young officers. Look, you don't represent just our city. You represent the entire profession. You screw up, it reflects badly on all of us.
Yep, every one of us. One of the things that we've implemented with this new training curriculum, I told you this class has the brand new redone training curriculum. So day one, talk about expectations, Scotty. So day one, you get to the academy. You get checked in, and then you get to sit down with the 3 of us for 4 hours. And you get leadership and expectations of the profession, right? Officer wellness and resiliency, from hiring to retiring, right? And we start your 13 weeks off with setting the expectations for your time with us, setting the expectations for your journey through law enforcement, and explaining to them that you're a leader from day one. And the opportunity for us to do that, it's powerful for us because we're seeing that generation, what that generation looks like coming in the door. Mm-hmm. But again, if we're not setting the expectations, if we're allowing someone else to do that, shame on us. I mean, we're the leaders in our profession. We're the ones that should be setting the expectations.
So I got a chance to walk in on that, and I was probably there about 20 minutes, and let me tell you how impressed I was with that you guys took time out of your day. You're at the top of the chain. You come all the way down to a class to talk to them. That was impressive, and the things you spoke about, I was highly impressed. Yeah, we're very thankful.
Well, again, it's our passion.
Right. The profession is our passion. The governor's put us in these positions to make the difference, and we hope we're doing that. But anytime we can speak to them, we're gonna take advantage of that. So, what else you guys got?
We start on that, and it's something all of you have said, but we let them know day zero. Their anxiety, they're excited, they're fearful, but we talk to them about what you do echoes an entire profession. Mm-hmm. And so when I was talking about changes, we give them the example. How many of you knew where Ferguson, Missouri was many years ago? None of us knew, really. And so what you do affects all of us. Anytime something happens, anybody who wears a badge, the honor of wearing that badge, it affects that.
Well, gentlemen, I'm getting the sign that we have to wrap this up.
What?
So, yeah, I know. 30 minutes. Just, yeah. So, I appreciate first of all, I appreciate your friendship. I appreciate your commitment to the profession. We appreciate you taking the opportunity to come do this with us today. So we're signing out on the 10-8 podcast, but we're never out of service. That's how we like to look at it. So thank you, gentlemen.